remember.
Telling stories?
Okay. So here's what I remember. Before we go on to any event, I would say to her, "Sparkle Shirley," and she would say,
"Sing out, Louise."
Shirley, that's what Shirley Temple's mom used to tell her. Anyway, and "Sing Out, Louise," you know where that's from?
Gypsy. Thank you.
Yeah, Gypsy.
A musically astute crowd. I like that.
Some of our more memorable events, as I recall, we went to this one all-girls school, and the librarian, after we spoke, said to all the girls, there were 7th, 8th, and 9th graders, and he said, "Okay, now 7th and 8th graders, remember, you cannot purchase Libba Bray's books unless you have a parental permission slip. But you can get any of Shannon's books you want. She's never written a bad thing in her life." Guess who sold no books? I want to tell some middle schoolers, these books are forbidden for you. But these ones are okay. Yeah. Which ones are they going to go for? All right. This is just actually, you know, a lot of people want book rating systems. I know exactly what will happen. As soon as you slap a book rating on that, those books are going to be so popular. You do, yeah. Anyway, that's my memory. Do you have a memory?
Princess Academy, Palace of Stone, and serial killers. Tell me, that's going to be big.
That's what I should have done.
"Mary, where are you going with that axe?" "No, Mary."
She's got it. You know, what too many winters up on top of a mountain and you start to go,
It's like the Shining. That's a mashup I want to see.
Yeah.
Another of my favorite stories is that toward the end of the tour, Shannon and I were flying from Seattle to Portland, and it was very early in the morning. I have a fear of flying. I don't like to fly. I have learned not to crawl into the laps of complete strangers and saying, "Hold me, I'm fragile." That took some time. But so Shannon knew this about me.
We walked out there, and it turns out to be a little plane.
Run by rubber bands.
It has propellers. And I saw them, I said, "Those had better be decorative." And they started to spin. I could feel her start to shake.
I'm like, Shannon, it's like Sheldon on the Big Bang Theory. Shannon, 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 Shannon. We're not getting on that plane. And she's like, "Oh, I'm sure that's just the decoy plane." Even on that plane.
It's just a toy plane. That's for their Barbie dolls. I'm sure it'll be different now. That was it. And so we sit down and she's shaking, and so I'm thinking, what? I started thinking like the most comforting song that I could think of, and I start to sing to her. "Sunshine on your shoulders makes me happy." And I start to sing this, and for some reason it's not comforting her.
And Shannon looks at me and says, "Who wrote that song?" And I said, "John Denver." He died in a plane crash. And we started in a medley, didn't we?
Yeah, we started to do a medley of songs sung by singers that died in plane crashes. and there are like, I don't know, like 25.
Got us all the way to Portland.
And they got us all the way. We sang the whole way. We were like, "Ow, Mama speaking." Crazy. I'm crazy for feeling. Anyway, there's a million of them.
I did a little Jimmy Ray Vaughan.
Jimmy Ray Vaughan, yeah.
Stevie.
Jimmy's
still with us.
Jimmy's doing fine. Jimmy, we saw him back in the lounge area. He was having some M&Ms.
Not mine.
Stevie. Wish I know.
Bless him.
Yeah. So other stories.
Other stories. Oh, how about the University Bookstore story?
Yeah. This one was
exactly.
No,
you got it. You jumped the gun.
We were inappropriate in this venue, sir, and you were right to call us out. We were a little tired. We were a little tired. The thing about book tour is that, I don't know, I think you say book tour and it sounds glamorous, and really it's like, get up at 5 a.m., go to an airport, get to Newtown, immediately go to do a school visit, eat food on the run, go to another school visit, eat food on the run, go do a night thing at a bookstore, get to the hotel, you forgot to have dinner, have some M&Ms from the mini bar, sleep for 5 or 6 hours off to another airport. No, I mean, you're exhausted. We were exhausted, and beforehand, do you remember when we were sitting in the room beforehand, I think we were animating like the cleaning supplies? I think like the spray cleaner was talking to
We were. We had a whole drama going on for them. You would be amazed at the secret lives of cleaning products. The things that we heard scarred us.
It was a little bit seedy, in my opinion. But So we got there, and I think we always did an entrance, and that one had those stairs, so there must have been Hello Dolly sung. I don't recall that immediately, but I can't imagine we would have passed up that opportunity.
It was a musical number.
And anyway, so we're there, we do our thing, and we start doing questions. And a beautiful little 6-year-old girl on the front row asks me a very legitimate question, which was, how did you come up with the idea for Princess Academy? And she was darling, and if I was in my sane mind, there would have been nothing but, aren't you sweet? And I love that she's trying out a new word. But there was something wrong with us.
And she did say it about 10 times.
She did.
We held it for the first 5 were
when you
good.
were on Princess Academy, I was wondering when you talked about when the girls went to the academy, if they were, what was the academy like? How big was it there before they went, and how long did they stay at the academy? And yeah, it did go on. And so we were trying, we were holding. It was like, I think you said, it was like trying not to laugh in church. But then when there was somebody else, and I don't know who went first, but I'm going to say it was Libba, and she goes, and we broke. And I don't mean a little bit.
Oh no, this was an epic breaking.
We fell upon the stairs, sobbing.
Heaving. Slapping of legs.
It went on way too long.
The dolphin sound.
There was snorting, there was a little bit of vomiting in my throat. It was so, and people who hadn't heard her lovely little question were like, what did she, and people were saying, what did she say? Like, surely there was something so wonderfully hysterical, why don't you share it with us?
You two horrible people making fun of a 6-year-old.
And we were
That was the
trying,
subtext.
truly trying so hard to stop laughing, and finally when we wiped our faces like this, and I got up and I said, well, that's a great question. When I was, I got the idea was my husband was reading a book and he told me the main character was a tutor to the princesses, and Libba said,
you said tutor? Because farts are always funny, people. That is just canon.
And I think we had to apologize to her dad afterwards.
We had a lot of apologizing to do.
He was just, I remember his face was looking at us like, you're not for real. Do you see my darling sister? You are mocking her publicly? What? And we had no explanation.
I almost felt like we would have been better served to just be like, I'm sorry, people, we're on crystal meth. We should have just lied. I think that would have been.
Yeah, that was the only way to get out of the stage, I think. Yeah. that was a good one. The entrances were always memorable. One bookstore had a ladder that I climbed upon and you pushed me in.
And then foolishly tried to grab hold as it was sailing off. I still have those bruises. It's been 5 years.
And then another store, this was in Seattle, they had a dolly in the back room. And so Libba says, why don't you get on it and I'll wheel you in? And I say, okay, because of the crystal meth. I don't know if I've ever been so scared in my life, because all of a sudden when it tips back, I can feel her going,
It's okay, I got it. Walk it off. That'll grow back.
So we were looking for a dolly around here, and she was all for it until I said, why don't you write this time? She's like, oh, well, yeah.
I just had M&Ms.
Yeah.
We'll let them settle.
Should we, do we have more stories to tell, or do we want to, oh, you know what, no, wait, I want to ask you questions.
What? I like the reindeer dance.
It's so hard to do.
Okay.
I can do the miming well. Seriously, my lips are so shaky. Thanks a lot, honey. So my question to you, reading The Diviners.
I haven't read it.
Oh, okay.
How's it?
You should check it out.
Okay.
I totally forgot until just now that we actually have books that we're supposed to be talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think we have more stories, and they'll crop up. Ooh, remember the breakfast sandwich crowns we made?
Yes, that's why I brought these.
Yeah, it was perfect.
We
Back
upgraded.
at Barnes & Noble, they had these things they put around their breakfast sandwiches, but they left us back there too long.
People make the mistake of leaving us alone. This is the moral you should take
We
away.
taped them together and made these fabulous crowns, like 8 Florentine crowns. sausage egg McMuffin crowns.
Were you sausage egg McMuffin, or was I? One of us was egg Florentine.
Well, the Florentine I felt was a little more royal. I think you probably got it.
And
I
probably
feel better about it.
a little more eco-conscious.
Right, probably. Okay, The Diviners, which I read, and it took me a while to read, and I'll tell you why. Because I couldn't read it at night.
Oh, I thought because it was 600 pages long. It's a morsel of a book.
It's a novella. I would literally not read it at night because it would scare the crap out of me. And I want to know, did you purposely design the book to speak to all of my personal fears?
That was my only goal. Actually, I asked Dean for a list of your personal fears before I got started.
You can verify this, right? I was terrified. It's true.
She's skittish.
I am. But no,
like a dove.
This book did a number on me. It was truly terrifying. And it was a joy to read. And then we get to the naughty John and be like, yeah, he's in my room. I had a nightlight. I had to start sleeping with a nightlight.
Is it a naughty John nightlight? Because that's what we're going to come up with.
I don't want it.
It's going to have, it'll be like the, you know, have the little apron on, you know, glow, his eyes will glow. And then in the middle of the night, the axe will just go, that's going to sell big. That's going to be good for Christmas, people. Just keep that in mind.
I do not watch horror movies because they do a number on me, and your book did a number on me. It was so scary. It was so scary. But I was wondering, as I was reading it, there were certain things I was wondering. I was so curious what books you were reading. I kind of thought maybe some Gatsby. Will you be reading Gatsby during this? Have you read it so many times you don't have to?
I absolutely. I wrote it, actually, under a pen name. That's how Fitzgerald was one of my pen names.
So it's William Faulkner when we were on tour.
I know. I just was saying, like, sometimes you go into bookstores and you just want to sign other people's books. I'm going to sign The Sound and the Fury because William Faulkner's dead. What's he going to do? What are you going to do, Bill? Dead.
I did this. Okay, this is me at a book festival. I'm at a book festival with T.A. Barron, a very nice, upstanding author. There's some girls that come through in my line. They're like, we are broke, we don't have any money, but we really liked you on the panel. Will you sign my school book? And it was a Ray Bradbury book. I was like, sure. So I signed Ray Bradbury book. Then they went to the line to T.A. Barron, and I'm, you know, doing stock signing. I think I was actually signing some of Polly Black's stock for her because she had so many. And she was there. And then I overhear the girl go up to T.A. Barron and say, will you sign one of my school books? And he said, absolutely not. That's unethical. And I'm like, okay. Don't say it. And she says, but Shannon Hale just did. Anyway.
I want to get back to the book in a minute, but because it's Halloween and because you mentioned scary things, will you please tell the creepy hotel story?
Which one? I've got two. That was creepy. So, we're in California. We get there at midnight. They're redoing the lobby, so the lobby is actually in a tent out front. So when we enter the building, there's nobody in the building. I mean, it's absolutely empty. And I'm thinking, Shining, right? Obviously. And then I go to my room, and I'm scared, and I'm alone, and I'm on a different floor than the publicist. And then at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, I wake up upright with a jolt, and I don't know why, and I look, and there are 2 feet standing outside my door. I can see and they just stand there. There's no knocking. They just stand there, the feet. And I count to 10. I count to 15. I count to 20. I turn. I walk slowly.
And you said, Dean.
Flying out just to scare me. I've had a lot of creepy hotels, though. Have I told you one about the one in Atlanta?
Is this the haunted one?
I know. No, that was another one.
The bed and breakfast?
Yeah, that was creepy too.
You don't want to travel with Shannon Hale. That's what I'm saying to you.
This one wasn't so much haunted as it was like real life, like murder scary. So I get to the hotel at midnight again. I check in alone. As he's checking me in, he kind of looks at me and says, this is not, just so you know, this is not the best room in the hotel, but it's our last one. Which is like last words, right? So he gives me the key, and I find I have to go downstairs to my room. Like I've never been in a basement in a hotel before. And as I get to my door, the door is ajar, and I hear men's kind of tense voices speaking inside my room. And I couldn't knock. And a very large man opens the door quickly, like this. And I say, I think this is my room. He's like, and his face like totally changes. He's like, oh yes, we're just cleaning it for you.
At midnight.
Like you do.
Sure.
And usually large, beefy, security-looking guys there who cleans your room. And there's a second large, beefy, security-looking guy looking under the bed and behind the chair. As I come in, I was like, what happened in this room? And they leave, and I would go back, but they already told me there's no more rooms in the hotel. And I noticed there's a second door. One comes from one door from the hallway, and I open to see where the other one goes. An empty parking garage. Underground, totally empty, no cars, parking garage. And the lock on it is broken. And I was like, oh my God. Somebody committed a crime here. They were looking for the stash or a body part. Someone's going to come back to hide the evidence. No one's going to hear me scream. I pushed the desk in front of the garage door. I called Dean, and it's all very funny while we're talking on the phone, and then I hang up. And I have to turn off the light. I was so scared. I just did not sleep that night. Never did find out what happened in that room.
First of all, you need to write a book about that.
Yeah.
You know what they say to me when I go to hotels?
What?
Miss Bray, please don't leave any more bodies.
Yeah.
And also, don't stand outside Shannon Hale's door because it creeps her out the door.
This is why you're so good at what you write. You see, I really am a princess, and that's how I can really get into that. And you really are a
individual murderer.
Yeah. Makes so much sense.
It's always the minister's daughters you have to watch out for.
So, The Haunting of Hill House.
Haunting of Hill House.
Did you read that?
Of course.
Shirley Jackson?
Love Shirley Jackson.
Okay, it's one of my favorite books ever. Super, super
So
creepy.
amazing.
But there were things I felt like the finders was some conversation with that book with that.
That is a lovely, lovely compliment. And yes, I would absolutely say that was an influence on this book. I was a huge, unlike Shannon, who's a delicate flower, and I look out for her. I was a huge horror fan as a child. Actually, on tour, I had been reading my 5th grade story, the first story I ever wrote for Miss Caulfield's class. It was a Halloween story. It's The Scintillating Death Castle. And what you can take away from this is that, A, I had a thought disorder as a child. Actually, I think I still have a thought disorder. And B, I was the sort of child about whom Child Protective Services should have come to my parents' door and said, Mr. and Mrs. Bray, we're concerned about Libba. She ever harmed a family pet? She a bedwetter? Because this thing is so full of gore, like I just get rid of all my enemies. And
This is 5th grade?
This is 5th grade. Dude, there is it's things like, we found Dawn, but she had been ripped apart. And then we found Fifi, but her heart was cut out and left on a table. It's just pages and pages of that. And then occasionally some pretentious flourishes like, we found some dresses. They were 17th century ones. Right? Like, we know. That's very 17th century, as opposed to later on when I say, it was a 16th century chair. Like I knew, please, I grew up in Texas. It's a miracle I have shoes on. But I was a big horror reader, and I loved Hawthorne, and I loved Poe, and there were these, anybody a Hammer horror fan? Do you know what those are? Yes! Thank you, Dean. Oh my God. There were these movies that were made at Bray Studios in England. My cousin Bray. And actually, I have no relation, or otherwise I'd be over there in a heartbeat. But there were these horror movies that were made, and they were things like Your Bride of Dracula, and they had Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee in them. And so they were these 18th and 17th century tales, but they were done, the women all had these sort of anachronistic 1960s, 70s beehive hairdos and you know, like the cat's eye makeup, which, you know, that's exactly what you're looking for in a Romanian tavern witch. So it was like Carnaby Street meets horror, and so horror and glamour forever merged in my mind. But I was a huge horror fan, and I loved Shirley Jackson, and I loved any kind of tale that would kind of creep me out. And so I wanted to play in that sandbox very much. And also, I did get a list of Shannon's fears, and I wanted to make sure I addressed every single one of them. So,
do you know, is it like, why are you more afraid of like that some dark evil is resurrected from the undead and comes back to kill people than like an actual like burglar or something? It's more plausible, isn't it? I mean, really?
I have a question for you.
You do?
I do. I have many questions for you.
Really? I wrote some down in case I needed more.
Oh, also, I forgot. I brought you a present because it's Halloween. These are party rats, colorful rodent lights for your fingers. Ideal for night blogging. Sometimes it's hard to find the perfect gift for someone who has everything, but that jumped out at me. I love you so much. I grew a second heart to hold on to love. I'm keeping it in my drawer.
Libba gave me, when we were on tour, a bracelet that said rock star in like rhinestones and all the little letters. And one day I was in my bathroom when I got back home, and out of the corner of my eye I was like drying my hair, and I was like, it's weird that rock star looks like sock rat when it's upside down. I was like, wait a minute, it's not upside down, doesn't make sense. And my husband had rearranged the letters, so it says sock rat. That has become one of our affectionate terms.
So I have a question for you about Palace of Stone.
You did? Okay.
Well, first of all, I wanted to know okay, there are going to be a couple of them. They're going to come at you. You ready?
Yeah.
Shake it. Shake it. All right. All right, you're centered. And judges ready? Timers ready? Begin. So I wanted to know what inspired you to go back to the story after a few years. And also, I was very intrigued by all the sort of topical things that are happening. I mean, there's a lot that made me think about Occupy Wall Street, made me think about
Spring,
current political climate. I was like, I thought that in addition to being this wonderful tale about love and about family and about home and responsibility, that it also felt like there was a lot of commentary on what was going on in the world. And so what inspired you to go back to it? And two, can you talk a little bit about some of the things that are in there?
Well, I told everybody I wasn't going to write a sequel. I was never intended to write a sequel. People said, will you? And I was like, well, maybe. And then as time went on, I was like, no. I never intended it to need a sequel. I liked the way it was. Also because people were emailing me and saying, please write a sequel and this is what should happen. And I got really shy. I was like, I don't want to be like, no, you're wrong. My version's right. Your version is wrong. And so I decided not to do it. And then, honestly, it was one word. Revolution just like popped into my head one day. And when I realized what that would mean for the main characters and how tricky and complicated it would be, and suddenly, like, the sequel that I thought, I was like, I could write it if I wanted to because I know what happens. But all of a sudden I realized I don't know what happens, and that was more exciting to me. Because I was like, okay, now there's an exploration I've got to figure out. And it's a book that's too hard for me to write. I was going to have to educate myself. So I did a lot of research on revolutions. The French Revolution was horrific. I thought I knew. I did not know how horrific it was. The Russian Revolution, so many revolutions. And as I was reading a lot of them, it was really interesting to me to learn about women's rights movements. And that revolution was accomplished without killing anybody. And that just resonated with me. And it was interesting, I was on a radio program recently where they asked me, they're like, so here you have this book called Princess Academy, and then, which sounds so feminine, and then you have it's about a revolution, and that's so masculine. And what was so interesting to me, and really doing research, is that women have been a part of every major political and historical event of all time. We don't always see it because often the men recorded the history. But like in the French Revolution, women were very, very much, and one of the characters is based on this crazy, incredible woman in the French Revolution who used to host
My mother?
Yes. We talk all the time, as you know. We're really close.
Speaking of my fears.
Okay. I call her Mima. Yeah. But she had these literary salons, and she was wealthy and had a wealthy husband, and people would come, and the young students would meet together and like talk politics, which was illegal. And she would publish these tracts, which were these like essays about stuff under her husband's name, and because women weren't allowed to. Anyway, so you don't really know how much girls and women were a part of it because they weren't allowed to claim or to credit or put their name on anything. But the way that the revolution goes, these girls really decide the way it's going to go, and that was really fun for me, and it felt realistic. But it's really, although it's not a treatise about revolution, it's about the character and her choices. And what else did you ask me?
No, that was, I'd asked you what inspired you to come back to it, and then I talked about all the topical things in there.
Oh, the topical things, right, yeah. All that stuff was going on while I was writing it, and though I didn't ever, I get when Tolkien says, Lord of the Rings is not an allegory of World War II, and yet he lived World War I and World War II, and those things can't help seeping in whether he meant it as an allegory or not. So certainly I wasn't trying to say, what's going on in the world now, I'm representing in this book, but it was going on, it was in my head, and I've had a lot of people say it really seems to reflect, a lot of what's happening.
Also, it's a great book. Has anybody here read it?
Woo!
Right?
There's my husband.
That's Shannon Hale. I think this writing thing is going to take off. I think she should stick with it.
I said my family, I still have my siblings, my parents, not so much the last couple of years, but cousins and aunts. Whenever I see them, they'll come up to me and say, guess what? I mean, what? I met someone whose daughter lives in Orem, and she's read one of your books. Because I don't live in Orem, so it's like, oh, that's amazing. So she's reading for me too. She's like, it's going to take off for you.
I met some guys who read your books too. They were like these big, beefy security types. And they were dragging a body, and they were doing something about Shannon Hale.
Yeah.
Shannon Hale.
So you figured they were fans.
Oh,
that's why
big
they must have
time,
been saying
big
my name,
time.
right?
They had your address, they had your photo. Big fans.
All right, I have a question for you. This is what I wanted to ask you. As I was reading your book, I noticed some last names that looked familiar.
Did you?
I did. And I don't want to say, I didn't want to, when I saw Hale in there, I didn't want to assume that Hale's sweet shop was named after me. But then I started to notice other names like Knowles and Wasserman and Lockheed, other authors that we happen to know that are friends of yours. So I'm just wondering, was that an accident?
Purely coincidental.
That's fair.
Purely coincidental.
Yeah.
Also, Dr. Pawlowski. Total fluke.
Total fluke. It's a common name. So
I did have an editor, I did have my lovely editor, Alvina Ling, at one point say, you're going to have to take some of these out.
really, were they too much?
Yeah, what was it? There was a whole scene that took place at the state fair, and I think there was there was a Maureen Johnson roller game stand or something like that. She was like, really? Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I got a few of them in there.
You got a few.
And in sneaky places too.
Yeah.
It's an Easter egg hunt, y'all.
It is. And I didn't know this till about halfway through, and then I started to sort of keep track. And I did notice that nobody whose last name was someone I knew was actually brutally murdered. So I thought that was a nice touch.
Well, I got 3 books to go.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. All right. Oh no. Yeah. You got another question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I also have some questions from Twitter.
You do?
Yes. Liz Burns asks, do you like my dress?
Oh my gosh, Liz Byrne. I love Liz Byrne's dress. She looked amazing. On Twitter.
She always is fashionable.
Yeah.
But Nikki Wang asks, will you write more Baron books?
Not currently. Not currently. I can't imagine ever going back. But I'm not very smart. It turns out if you're a smart writer and you have a series, you do them all in a row. like that. Like, so what I do is like write a book and wait 7 years and then write another one. Apparently, is it the best strategy for book sales? I don't know. It's kooky.
I think that's going to catch on though. It's experimental.
So I have like 4 or 5 series now, and I just occasionally like, which one do I feel like writing one is now? Let's do another Austenland. Okay.
I wanted to ask you about the Austenland experience. Tell everybody about the movie experience.
Well, there's so much, and yet so little. There's no news yet of any kind of release date. Like, what? What should I tell? You guys already told the underwear story. That's like my only real story. It's online, apparently. Someone filmed me telling the underwear story, so you can watch it on YouTube. Oh, gosh.
Brett, you and Brett are like BFFs now.
Yeah, Brett, Mackenzie, and I are so close. We are Oscar winner Brett Mackenzie. No, I can't claim any of them as good friends, but I have seen James Seymour several times since, and I keep in touch with Ricky Whittle on Twitter. Brett Mackenzie, in case you're wondering, from Flight of the Conchords, is one of the best human beings in the world. So awesome.
Other than me.
Right, one of the best human beings. Well, I didn't say human beings, so. But I'll just give you a little screenshot, a little screen grab of like one day in the life. I'm on set, and we're doing a night shoot, which is supposed to be not fun. But we were in England, and there's all these great people around, and we were doing the theatrical, which in the book is really short. But for the movie, I wrote into a 15 pages of, I'm like, because like the play within the play is always the funniest thing. Like Midsummer Night's Dream, that's like the funniest thing, or Noises Off. So I like wrote 15 pages of the play within the play, and my co-writer was like, "You're gonna have to cut this." So I gamely cut 2 pages. No, it ended up being like 3 pages. We cut out 12 pages. Someday I'll publish it. If we were a play, we would have really done it. But anyway, we get there. It's the middle of the night, and we're in the middle of the forest, and all of a sudden it opens up, and they have set up. It was like entering fairy. The set was amazing. It was gorgeous. It was gaslit, and it was the colors. It was just it was unbelievable. And we're sitting around and having dinner, and one of my favorite guys on set was James Callis, who was in Battlestar Galactica. And anyway, they're eating their dinner, and he's like, "What meat is this, do you think?" And I was quite sure.
That's a question you never want to hear.
It's not like really the best catering, to be honest. I enjoyed it, but anyway. And he says, has anyone else noticed that since we've been here, you haven't seen as many squirrels about? And J.J. Fields said, "I've eaten squirrel." And James Callis said, "Oh, it's a gorgeous squirrel. I wouldn't have a word said against it." And it was just so British. And it was just, everything was just so yummy. And I just could listen to everybody talk forever. The guy that, the way they talk in Britain, that served up my hash every day to eat. And he would say, "You call me gorgeous and lovely and love." And he was like, "Oh." And I had recently had twins, and I was not, looking my best, shall we say. And yet he kept calling me gorgeous, and it was magical. The movie was good too.
Have I told you my British story?
What's your British story?
So when I was a teenager, I used to do stupid things. I know you're shocked. And I went with my friend Jeannie, who was always kind of getting us into things. I went to a party in Dallas with her, and for no reason that I can think of, I decided to be British. So I went to this party, and I figured, I'm not going to know anybody there. I can just totally reinvent myself. So I went to this party, and we're there for a little while, and people come up and be like, "So, hi, how are you?" I'm like, "I'm fine, darling. Oh, it's brilliant. You'll love it." And I just keep, saying things that are on TV. And so finally, there's a really cute guy, and he asked me to dance. And so I'm like, "Yes, of course." So we're dancing, and he said, "Now, where are you from?" And I said, "Well, I'm not from the States, actually. I'm from England." And he said, "No kidding. He said, "Where?" I said, "London." And he said, "My parents live in London. I'm there all the time." Where in London? I know it like the back of my hand." And I said, "A suburb." And I was totally busted. I didn't know anything about England. mean, like, you know, except, of course, 17th century dresses. And so, you know, I had to excuse myself and go over to my friend Jeannie and be like, we have to go right now. And she's like, we just got here, chill. And I said, no, we have to go right now, we have to go now. And she said, why? And I said, see that dude over there? And she goes, yeah. I said, I kind of told him I was British. She said, what's wrong with you? And I said, I felt like being adventurous. I wanted to be kind of exciting. And so I told him I was British. And so we had to leave the party, and she has still never forgiven me. And the moral of that is, friends don't let friends pretend to be British.
Should we do questions? Let's do questions. I think we could talk forever. It's embarrassing. Does anybody have any? We'll just do a few questions. Yeah.
I got one. This is going to give me nightmares, but I have to know, what is the tune of the Naughty John song?
Seriously.
Naughty John does his work with his apron on, cuts your throat and steals your pens, sells them up for a cup of stock. I can't wait for the remix, though. That was gonna kill.
Oh, he's doing it.
John! You've terrified me. Oh, brave soul.
Me?
Yes. You didn't know you were the brave soul. Too late now. Keep your hands inside the ride. Okay.
How about, like, you two Amazing Race?
How about
Us on the Amazing Race?
Oh my God. I would personally fail on the very first day. Did I mention my workout? I got lost coming here, and I live in South Jordan. There could not be a worse person than me on an Amazing Race.
I would go up to somebody and be like, if you don't give me your M&Ms, I'm going to sing that song again. I would have your back.
You would too? Okay.
I killed without
never,
remorse.
like, my last desire ever would be on a reality TV show. But if I was on it with Libba Bray, like, it was like, you know, like one of those house shows where everybody lives in a house together and they film you, they no, Libba Bray's going to be in it. Okay. Let's do it. Throw in M.T. Anderson, I'll be like, yeah.
That would be kind of funny if there were a reality show with a bunch of YA authors.
Oh my goodness.
You and me, Murray Johnson.
All of
John.
David Letterman's clones.
All of David. By the way, he's coming on Monday.
Woo!
Don't miss him at the King's English on Monday. I tried to get him to come 2 days earlier and do it with us.
Oh, he's lovely, and every day is an amazing book. Really beautiful. Yeah.
I know you're both natural redheads. I recently heard that redheads will be extinct in 30 years, and how do you feel about that?
How do we feel about the redheads will be extinct in 30 years? I personally have started like a commune of redhead readers. So, no, I blame the extinction personally on my husband. I have 4 children, 4 chances for a redhead. I got none. Whose fault is that?
I won. My spawn is redheaded.
But I'm sure I'll have a redheaded grandchild, right? So I'm going to have to, like, arrange the marriages of my children. So maybe we can
Okay,
talk to...
I got one. I tell them just hold out.
Maggie's 5, so it's going to be a few years. So, no, it's not a good feeling to know. I'm a persecuted something.
I like to think that it's like Agatha Christie's 10, you know, like Then There Were None. And we've been like slowly getting rid of the competition.
That book scared me too.
I know, it was great, wasn't it?
It was actually really great, but it scared me. Not as much as The Designers, which terrified me. I can tell you about how terrifying it is. It's more than terrifying though. It's so, I mean, Liv is such a good writer. At the sentence level, at the larger story level. There's so many characters you did. I don't know, you did so many characters in this
did.
book. I mean, to go from Gemma Doyle, which was a first person, present tense, you know, one main character, and then of course, you know, beauty queens. Sorry, that's the sequel, isn't it?
I am writing a in my head right now.
Nothing special about making them. But this was...
I'm going to pose for the cover.
Okay, when we went on tour together, we called it the Torso Tour because we realized my book at the time was Book of 1,000 Days, and hers was The Sweet Far Thing, which sounds like the Sweet Far. And they both of those have just the torsos of girls on them. And so we call it the Torso Tour. And when we passed by a photo booth one time, like it's pictures of us with just our torsos. So like we posed just the two of us. And we got all these pictures of just our torsos. And I'm not afraid of looking like a chump. And I don't need to look pretty, but I will tell you, those immediately got torn up into little tiny.
I have mine taped above my desk. And there you go. Apparently I like to look like a chump.
And we both went, this is why our publishers didn't have us pose for the covers. Yeah, it's a lot, it's becoming clear. Oh, so someone else with a question?
Yeah.
I love the audiobook of Beauty Queens, and I was just curious about that experience and narrating your own book and what that was like.
That was a really cool experience. That was a very unique experience.
You won a big award for it, too.
I did. I won
Up
the
against who else was?
Tina Fey.
Tina Fey.
Oh.
Ellen DeGeneres, Rob Lowe, and John Lithgow.
And her. And she won.
Which that totally made up for not getting asked to senior prom. Or out on any dates ever in high school.
Well, you've been British.
I don't know why people wouldn't want to date me. I mean, I don't seem psychotic at all. No, don't like me. I'm just going to talk like this. So, yeah, it was a really fun experience. We had to do it in 5 days, so there were like 5 crammed days, like 9-hour days. And it's really weird because I never go back and read a book because by the time you're finished with it, man, you have been through that thing. It is like the ex-boyfriend you never want to see again. They're like, okay, we're good. All right, you got your t-shirt. Yeah, all right, have fun in Nebraska. Leave me the Wilco albums. So it was weird to actually have to read my stuff and to read it aloud, and I'd be like, who wrote this stuff? Oh, right. But it was a really fun experience. I think it was it was very unique with that book. I don't think I would ever do it again. I have the utmost respect for people who do that professionally. And of course, the funny thing was that right after I finished it, so I finished it and I was like, okay, good, we got that. It's done. It's ready to go. And now I can, tomorrow morning when I get up, I can start working on Diviners because I was behind on that. And I walk out the door and I'm crossing Broadway and I trip over this guy's foot and I come down hard and break both of my elbows. So that's what happens when you get cocky and you record your own audiobook. It's the price you pay.
That's horrible.
I'm glad I could end it on like a downer like that. It was really fun. I enjoyed it. And I ate a lot of oranges because apparently you find out a lot about, like pop and things like that. And I also found out that little bit of Texas accent I still have is like magnified in the booth. Like there were words that had 12 syllables. Cable. I'm not sure.
Just say come mess with Texas. Just say that line for me.
Don't mess with Texas.
No, come mess with us.
Come mess with Texas.
Yes, I love that line so much. It's my favorite line in the whole book. Love it. By the way, that was me on the cover of Beauty Queens. All right, were there any other questions? Yeah.
I just want to know, how was it helping to write the screenplay for Austin and having written the book? I mean, was it...
What was it like writing a screenplay for Austin when I had written the book? I loved it. I think some authors might struggle making the changes, but I really thought from the very beginning, I thought, this is a different project, the book is what it is, I didn't feel like I needed to cling to because it's already out there, it exists. So for me, it was like, what fun can we have with this? I loved writing new scenes. I loved, we made, most of the characters are pretty much exactly as they are in the book. There's just some slight changes. But just getting in and it made me, actually that's why I wrote Midnight Aslan, because I had so much fun writing it. I thought, I really need to go back to these characters. with Midnight House, and I decided Miss Charming is clearly still there, like a year and a half later. That's not happened. I couldn't wait to like write her story, Mrs. Waddles Brooks. So yeah, and I co-wrote it, which is also, you know, I'm an extrovert, and I write alone in my room. So collaboration's really fun for me. I like collaborating with my husband. I like collaborating with this other screenplay writer, and we would sit in a room together, and we like, you know, you toss ideas at each other. And her system, she wrote Gentlemen Broncos and Libba Bray and Napoleon Dynamite with her husband. And I quickly learned their system was you shout out lines at each other, and you just either, if they make the other person laugh, you write them down, or otherwise they'll tell you, that's stupid. And I quickly was like, oh, really? She's like, no, that's just how we talk, right? So I was like, how about this? And I told her, like, that's stupid. Okay. Right. And then sometimes we would laugh so hard at lines and realize they made no sense. We couldn't keep them anyway. So but it was just like, you know, we were like living different versions of this movie for 2 years. It was fun.
That's actually how Barry talks to me.
Yeah. Yes.
You gotta get rid of that. That's stupid.
That's good. Yeah. Barry, her husband, is my agent. So.
All the way in the back.
Speaking of collaborating, you could write a book with any author.
Well, someone did on Twitter did ask if there would be a Diviners Princess Academy mashup. I'd like to see that.
What would happen in that book?
There would be feet outside a door. There would be two girls who were trying to figure out where the body was stashed.
Right, yeah.
Then we just quarry talk to each other. Did you get that?
Yeah, no, I got it. Now I see the whole picture. We move in such different circles, she and I. Her book is full of teenagers, like, getting drunk in speakeasies. I got in trouble because one of my characters drank tea. All right, this is like, this is a different universe. What could we do together? The idea is just frightening and so worrying.
Delicious.
Delicious.
Yes. People would just be scarred. It would ruin them. Besides the illustrious Shannon Hale, who I think I would have like 10 tons of fun working on something together. Actually, I think you and I could do a fun middle grade together. Because it would be full of fart jokes and
The other day, actually, my husband and I are writing a middle grade series, and an early chapter book series, and one of the books it's going to be years down the line, came out of my daughter asking me the other day, Mama, do princesses toot?
Ask the tutor.
Awesome question. Yes, they toot! And I was going to write a story about it, which I think I will. You should.
You should.
Yeah. It's going to happen.
So besides the illustrious Shannon Hale, I would love to write something with David Levitan.
Who wouldn't?
Or one of his clones could do it with me.
It's nice that he never sleeps, so he's got time for that.
What about you?
Who would I want to write?
Besides me.
And my illustrious Stephen Hale, my other half. I don't know, I've had great experiences collaborating. I could think of a lot of people I wouldn't mind collaborating with. As long as they were good sports, you know? Like, Liv and I both did improv comedy, and there's a certain kind of give and take. And if I could co-write with any talented person that understands the give and take. I'm thinking of somebody with ego, you know what I mean? I couldn't co-write with an ego person. But fortunately, Libba has no ego whatsoever.
I think that's readily apparent.
She's been crushed into the hard heel of life, crushed hard. So,
But you did it for my own good.
I told you, life would be easier if I just taught you how things work.
I never want to let you go.
No one's going to love you like I do, Libba Bray. Are we out of time? All right, yeah, last question. Did you select somebody?
So if you had your hand up in the back, it's giving love to the back.
The cheap seats. Hey! Woo! What was that? We couldn't hear you.
What are you working on? Anything maybe with the next movement? Or, I mean, for both of you, what's your next project?
Well,
Diviners to the
Electric Boogaloo.
Electric Boogaloo.
Electric Boogaloo. It's going to be on roller skates. And spandex.
It's going to be like Bloody Jim John starring in the adaptation, right?
You don't know how badly I want to write that. Days, nobody dared to close. Sorry, that was the energy moment. And we're back. I'm working on Diviners 2, or I will be as soon as I go home. And I'm also working on the screenplay for Diviners 1, so I'm going to be picking your brain.
It's fun. I love doing screenplays. I am, my husband and I are doing the Princess in Black early chapter book series. The first one will be out in a year, and the illustrator we officially were able to announce is Lei-Win Pham, who is fantabulous. She's so good. She's so good. If we couldn't have our beloved Nathan Hale who did Rapunzel's Revenge, Lei-Win Pham was definitely my first choice. And I am working on a book I've been working on for 5 years. If any of you read my blog, it was called Daisy Danger Brown. It's not called that anymore. But I'm determined to finish it. I put it down for Midnight Osland. I put it down for Palace of Stone, but I am going to finish it. But I don't know when it'll be released. And then after that, I am going to do another Princess Academy book, and I think I am going to do another Austen Land. That's how smart authors write books. Okay, we're going to our signing, but I think we just need to end with
With our signature song?
I think we do.
Okay. Should we set this up for
I
everyone?
think probably we should.
When Shannon and I were on tour together,
We may have mentioned that we toured together.
once or twice, or 8 times. For no reason, again, something British, for no reason that we can think of, we ended up deciding that we needed to have a closing song. And what better way to close than to sing a song that you don't actually know the words to? So, I can't remember how Total Eclipse of the Heart was born.
I can't remember. It just happened. It was like a magical moment. We both just started to sing. And I think that was the song we chose. So,
We haven't done this together in years.
no, we haven't.
No, I still don't know the words.
No, I don't either.
So we'll just make them up.
All right, here we go.
Feel free to sing along if you know the words or if you want to make up your own.
Oh, wait, no, we need to preface this by, I want to make sure you're all aware that I am aware that I cannot sing. All right? And that Libba Bray has like this smoky, bluesy, incredible voice. Please know, so you're not uncomfortable, that we're both totally aware of this. And we're okay with that. All right. I have no idea what I'm going to say.
I feel like I just want to sing in a different voice. Turn around.
Every now and then the band and I get together and we need to learn the words of this song.
Turn around.
Every now and then she writes a book that keeps me up all night and gives me really scary nightmares.
Turn around.
Every now and then I write about princesses and I'm the good girl and she has a soul of evil.
Turn around.
Every now and then I get to wear a tiara cause Libba put it on my head.
Turn around, bright eyes.
Every now and then I fall apart.
Turn around, bright eyes.
Every now and then I fall apart. And I need you now tonight. I need you more than ever. Only hold me tight. Hold it on forever. How long have you making it right? 'Cause
Thank you to the Radiant Center, and thank you for coming out.
Thank you. Please, please support your library, support your local bookstores.
Yes.
The only reason you have these events. Thank you so much.